Now I have finished sewing in my 2 liner fabrics. I did the second one exactly the same as I did the first one. And so now what we have is, you can see when I should put the right sides facing, I've got my main fabric on both sides. And then in the middle is the zipper, and you can't actually see it, but it's there. And then I've got my liner fabric, okay? And that is true on both sides. And just to be clear that everything is still working, this is something that you should definitely do before you move on to the next step, because you don't want to be caught with an error. I'm going to run my zipper, and you can see that it opens and closes. And at this point, it's likely to try and pick up the fabric a little bit, just because we don't have anything else sewn into place yet. But as long as you can get it to open and close, you can get the fabric out of it, then you're good. Okay, so that zipper does run smoothly, even though it was picking up the fabric. So at this point, what we want to do is we're going to pin in preparation to sew up the sides of the pouch. And what we're going to do is, first off, move the zipper into about the middle of the pouch. And then we're going to pin on one side. You can pick which one you start with. It doesn't matter too much. We're going to forget about the notch for now and leave that. We're going to start at this corner, and we're going to pin the right sides to the main fabrics to each other and the liner fabrics to each other. And I like to have 3 checkpoints when I'm pinning like this. So I'm going to start by pinning the zipper together. So you can see that I've got the 2 zipper pieces and they're lining up perfectly. I'm going to pin that. That is going to be step 1. And now, because I have the room to do so, I am pinning perpendicular to my fabric at this point. Then I'm going to do this corner, and remember, we're leaving aside the notch. That's going to come later. And we're going to pin like this. You can do this against a table too. That would be possibly wiser, but I'm trying to show you. And then I'm going to pin my third, and these aren't lining up super well, which is why I'm doing this in stages. I want these corners to line up perfectly. So I'm going to make them do that. And then I'm going to fudge things along the way if I have to. So there we go. That is lined up perfectly. Okay, at the end. In the middle, it's got a bit of a tendency to bunch. So what I'm going to do is try and make sure that this bunching is spread out a bit. So it's not all like in one place. It's kind of going to be spread along. And that's going to make everything line up better. So I'm going to do another pin about here. I've got a little bit of the bunching happening on this side and more on the other because there's more fabric on the other. And I'm going to do this again. I'm going to try and make it in about the middle here. Okay, and then as we're sewing, we're just going to let that bunch a little bit and it'll be fine. This is the liner. It's not a big deal. Now this one is lying much nicer, which is great because that is our main fabric and that's what everyone's going to see. So I'm going to pin a couple in here as well. Boom. And boom. And we're going to pause there for a sec as I switch back to my regular foot. So at this point, we're done sewing in the zipper. I'm going to take my zipper foot off. Remember, you've got that silver lever at the back where I have the red button. And then I'm going to put my regular presser foot back in place. Your machine doesn't have this handy dandy storage place for all of the presser feet. This one does. So I'm just going to put things away as I work. Yeah, that slot is good for either the main one or the zipper foot. So we're switching back to the one that has the center bar, and we want that bar to line up with our grabbers, and we plunk it down into place, and then just check that it's still moving freely. You don't want it to jam. Okay, so one thing to watch out for as we do this sewing is that where the zipper is, there's going to be quite a lump that you're going to have to sew over. Okay, so just be prepared for that and maybe go a little bit slow there and be careful. Now at this point, I want to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And there's 2 ways to do this. One, if you would feel more confident, you could measure a 1/2 inch in from the edge on a few places here and then draw a chalk line. I'm going to not do that. Instead, I'm going to use these guides on my sewing machine's foot plate. You see there's 3/8 and 5/8 here. It hasn't actually marked a 1/2, but 4/8 is a 1/2. And so you can interpolate that that notch there is going to be 4/8. And I'm going to try and follow with my fabric along that notch as I sew to get my 1/2 inch seam allowance. So like this is how I'm going to try and go. Okay. So raising my presser foot, I'm going to drop my needle down into place near the edge with my 1/2 inch seam allowance in place, avoiding my pin. Now, because I've got my needle planted, I'm going to pull out my first pin and drop my presser foot. And remember, we want to sew forwards just a little and then back and then forwards again. This is our way of tying a knot on a sewing machine. I'm going to sew nice and slowly so that as the pins come up, I can remove them. And sorry, I'm struggling a bit to put this into the pin cushion. There we go. And as I go, I'm not pulling on the fabric, I'm just gently guiding it so that it stays lined up with my 1/2 inch seam allowance right there. Okay. Now here I'm going to slow down a fair bit because I'm about to go over the zipper. You can see the big lump here. I just want to do that slowly and carefully. There we go. And now I'm transitioning onto my liner fabric. And you can see because these two pieces were not perfectly aligned, it is getting a little bumpy here. That's okay. Nobody's ever going to really see the edge of the liner. It's fine. I'm pulling my pins out a little in advance here. And I'm wandering a bit in from my seam allowance, so I'm going to kind of work my way back over to where I actually want to be. Okay, and now I'm slowing down as I approach the end. And I'm going to kind of encourage this to meet up as best as it can. Okay, now I'm right at the end. Remember, we're going to go backwards a bit and forwards again to tie our knot. And there we go. I'm going to bring up the take-up lever and pull my work away, giving myself nice long threads there so that I can start up again. And now we have the side sewn together. So let's see if we can open this up and see what that looks like. Now you can sort of see, because of the zipper, we can't do this perfectly, but you can see that the side is now sewn together. Okay, and I'm just going to repeat and do that on the other side. And at this point, it is actually really important to make sure that your zipper is halfway in the middle. It's going to mess you up so much if it isn't. So I'm just going to double check that my zipper is still where I think I left it. Yes, there it is. If it wasn't, this would make my life really hard in a little bit. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm just going to pin and do the other side, but I'm not going to bother showing that on the video. Okay, thank you.